Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Very well. Thank you very much.
Good, good. You having what time is it over there?
It's 3:25 in the afternoon.
Oh, okay. So not too terribly later.
No, and this is my last interview of the day, and then I start packing, getting ready to go to Tons of Rock Festival in Norway tomorrow.
Oh, how far is Norway?
It's 2 hours by plane.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah, so it's
Nice.
quick in and out for us this weekend. We sort of land, I think we land around 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We go straight to the festival. We perform about 3 o'clock, stand in a field and get to watch Judas Priest tomorrow night, and then fly home Saturday morning.
Oh goodness, quick trip.
Yeah.
Well used to that though.
Yeah, we've been doing it a while, and it's not our first rodeo this weekend. So
Right. 30-ish years.
yeah, absolutely.
Uh, so yeah, the album comes out in less than a month. It's 3 songs so far. People are really enjoying it from what I've read. I've listened to the whole thing multiple times. It's a fantastic album.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, it's been, let's see, I believe the 10th one that you guys have done overall, but it's been the first one in like 6 years. How's it
Yeah.
kind of getting back at it?
Um, I mean, it's great. I mean, and a lot of people say, why is it taking you 6 years to do another album? But throughout the course of our career, we've always taken a while to release records because I don't think rushing a record is a good thing for a band to do. A lot of bands try and get on that 2 year cycle of create an album, go and tour it, create an album, go and tour it. But we did that with the Back from the Abyss album in 2014. And I found that it was kind of rushed. And I don't think you come up with your best material when you're in a rush and being pressured to do something. So we just like to let creativity sort of flow, and whether it takes, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, it's worth doing because that's our legacy. That's what we're going to leave behind. So you want it to be the best it can possibly be. And obviously, as you say, 6 years since the Wolf Bites Back. But we did a lot of touring off the back of that. We was in the States in 2019, did a lot of festivals, and then 2020 we was due to celebrate our 25-year anniversary. And then obviously the world shut down. COVID put a spanner in the works, and it halted all our plans to celebrate that milestone. And in that period, Martin, our bass player, decided to call it a day. And that was all amicable. And we'd always said that if any of the original members leave, then we'll finish the band. But Martin insisted that he didn't want that to be the case. He uh he knew how much we enjoyed doing the band, and he didn't want to be the reason that we stopped. He just couldn't find the time to get away with touring as much as we were doing. And we all have day jobs, and the band is still like a hobby to us, which is great. It's a fun way to spend your weekends. So yeah. But when Martin told us that he was leaving, he suggested that we got Harry in to play bass, and Harry had been a long time friend of the band, and it made sense to us. So we didn't have any of that painstaking sort of process of auditioning bass players. It was just, a ready-made fit. All it involved was me making a phone call to Harry saying, "Do you want to join Orange Goblin?" He said, "Yeah," and that was that. It was done. And the only good thing that came from the COVID break was that obviously there was no live activity. So Harry had a long time sitting at home to learn all the Orange Goblin songs, so that when the world did open again in 2021, he was already up to speed and we hit the ground running. Um, and then we had to renegotiate a new record deal because Wolf Bites Back was our last album for Candlelight. So we spoke to a few labels, and anybody that's ever done that knows that it's a quite a long process because you want to make sure you get the best deal possible. And us knowing that we're no spring chickens, we wanted to make sure we made the right decision. And the one label that really sort of spoke to us was Peaceville, not only because of their history and the stuff that they've put out in the past, but because of their enthusiasm and their desire to work with Orange Goblin. So that seemed like the right choice for us, and it's proven to be the case because they've been incredibly patient. We we did a lot of stuff in 2021 and 22, which kind of made up for the shows that we'd cancelled in during COVID. So we went back to Hellfest and Graspop and Sweden Rock and all these huge festivals. We came over to the States again in 2022 to do Desert Fest New York and shows in Seattle and Boston, Philadelphia. So yeah, it's not as if we've been sitting idle, sort of twiddling our thumbs and doing nothing. It's been a
Right.
really busy period. And then come the start of 23, we said to Peaceville, right, yeah, we get it. We understand we do need to deliver an album. So we went into the studio in November last year, started recording, and by mid-December we was all done. And then it was just a case of
Wow.
mastering, and here we are, ready to release it in a couple of weeks.
Wow. Wow. That was a quick turnaround. Um, Back to you guys playing together for almost 30 years, and your friend that's been basically, it sounds like probably the fifth member for a while that ends is the official member now. Um, it's really hard to have the same people in such a not only a creative environment, but I mean, when you guys spend a lot of time together, how are you able to continue to have a healthy relationship throughout all of these years of playing together?
Well, when we started the band, we were a group of friends anyway. We were sat around bored teenagers back in 1994, and we used to sit around listening to records and things as you do as kids, and just decided to give it a go ourselves. I'd never sung before. Martin had never played the bass before, so he learned from scratch. But we had the intention of just having some fun together and making the music that we wanted to hear. We're all fans of quite different bands and genres, and we wanted to put them all together and create something, that we didn't think any of the other bands kind of did. It's like, I love Black Sabbath, but there's no Pink Floyd in there, or I love, Pink Floyd, but you don't get that heaviness in there. So we wanted to do something that combines everything. And as you say, it's a long time to be together, but when you start out as friends, it's already a good sort of bedrock to build on. And over the years, we have fallen out. There's been arguments and things, but it's more of a brotherhood than a band, And we're very fortunate that we kind of know how each other work. We know what pisses each other off. We know when someone's down and needs an arm around them, or we know when they need to have a bit of time to themselves, and that just comes with experience, I guess. It's kind of like a family thing, and as we get older, obviously we've grown apart a little bit because we've all got our own families and we've all got our own things going on, and everybody sort of moves away. Chris is down in Brighton, Harry's down in Hampshire. Martin, actually, funnily enough, lives closest to me. He's around the corner, and I was round his house the other night to watch the England game on the telly in the
Oh,
football. Yeah. And Joe lives the other side of London. But when we do get together, it's kind of for the right reasons, and it's still exactly as it was 30 years ago when we started the band. We get together, and it's exciting to sort of be creative and have a laugh and just talk about funny things that have made us laugh throughout the course of our lives. So yeah, that hasn't changed at all. And as you say, there aren't many bands that have that. Off the top of my head, I could probably only think of the likes of Clutch, maybe, and
yeah.
one, two others. But yeah, we're a solid bunch, and we always said that the day it stops being fun, we'll draw a line in the sand, and that'll be it. But it hasn't, and it's still fun now, and we still have that youthful enthusiasm, even though Chris is 53, I'll be 50 in December, Joe's 49, Harry's 51. We're enjoying it as much now as we ever have.
Oh, thank goodness, because then we get to enjoy the fruits of all of that.
Yeah, and I think that experience and that longevity and the road we've traveled, we were naive as kids, and we made some mistakes. I mean, when we first went on tour, we thought it was just the excuse for a piss up. When there was turning up at venues and there's a fridge full of free beer, and we didn't really understand about the responsibilities involved as a musician to your fans and things like that. But we've learned from that, and we've grown to appreciate that, and we feel very lucky to still be able to do what we do. We're very indebted to our fan base that have been loyal with us through thick and thin. They've stuck by us, and it's because of them that buy the t-shirts and the albums and tickets to the live shows that we get to do what we do. And we had no preconception of what this band was going to be when we started. Like I said, we was just bored and we thought, yeah, it'd be fun. Maybe we could sort of record a demo and play some gigs in the local pubs and things like that. And it just snowballed. It's beyond any of our wildest dreams. And like I say, I'm approaching 50 and I get to say I've been to Japan, I've been to Australia, I've been to New Zealand, I've been to Russia, I've been all over North America and Canada and all these amazing places in Europe and everything, and it's because of Orange Goblin. So I'm very grateful for that, and I don't take it for granted now.
That's amazing. And Norway this weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to talk about, since you do the lyrics, that's something I always really enjoy talking about with people that when I get to interview lyricists. Ascend the Negative. I really, really enjoy the message in that song. I really enjoy
Yeah.
the song in general. Tell me a little bit about that song.
Well, I think in the past my lyrics are always rooted in kind of fantasy because I always use my lyrics as a form of escapism. Working a boring 9 to 5 job, you turn to music or you turn to painting or you turn to whatever your art form is, you turn to that to get away from that and express your creativity. And as I say, in the past, as well as the fantasy stuff, I was always kind of a half glass empty person, and I've struggled in the past with alcohol and addiction and stuff like that. And a couple of years ago, I got myself clean and sober, and I see life through different eyes now. You know, the world is a fucked up place. I'm not going to deny that, but there's a more of a positive outlook on it. I've learned to appreciate that, you know, in the grand scheme of the universe, we're only here for a very short time, and we need to make the most of our time here. And for me, that's just being the best you can be, being a decent, upstanding human being, treating people with the respect you'd expect to receive yourself. And that's kind of what Ascend the Negative was, because a lot of people struggle to get themselves out of them bad situations and the dark. And it's a recurring theme on science non-fiction. If you listen to the first track, The Fire at the Center of the Earth, and it opens with the line, I will not apologize for the bastards that I've been, and I will not romanticize on the darkness. And I say it's because I've done that, but I can't change that, but I can change my future. And Ascend the Negative is very much like that as well. It's done with, a bit of a nod to some of my literary heroes, the likes of Poe and Lovecraft and people, but also there's a kind of science fiction edge to it because of the theme of the album. And yeah, it's an interesting song because the whole song, Ascend the Negative, is almost like it's two songs crushed together in one. You've got that section where we've got the Carl Sagan sample, and then it's a door slamming. We put some effects on a door slamming,
Oh,
which kind of changes the riff. And the first song is quite heavy and rocky, and then it goes into this really sort of uplifting, almost chanted. I had a Killing Joke sort of idea for the vocal delivery on it, and it was just a really interesting song. It's probably the last song that we finished, actually, because we weren't sure where we were going to go with it. And Mike Exeter, the producer, came into the studio when we was doing pre-production, and he made some suggestions about how it should go. And it was his idea to put the slamming door on there and stuff. And in the past, we might have been a bit like, well, not having the producer telling us what we should do. But obviously, Mike Exeter's worked with Tony Iommi and Black Sabbath and Judas Priest. So when he speaks, you listen. And it certainly, was beneficial to the album. And yeah, it's a great. It's actually the next single we're releasing, the final single.
cool.
We'll start the album. So we're all day I've been dealing with emails trying to work out what we're going to do with the video and stuff.
So with the videos, I mean, you've had some pretty you have the eye that seems to be the theme in a couple of them, and then you have the Cemetery Rats that has kind of like the comic book kind of
Yeah.
look to
Yeah,
it.
that's exactly what I had in mind when I started working with Matt Vickerstaff, who does the videos. He's great at sort of understanding exactly what we're trying to achieve. And when we did Cemetery Rats, because of the nature of the music and the sort of horror intro, I said I want it to be. Do you remember the 1980s Stephen King movie Creep Show that he did with George Romero?
Um,
And and he was like, "Yeah, I know exactly what you mean." And I'm a big fan of horror. I mean, you look around my room, I've got old vaults of horror posters up
oh,
here,
fun.
and I love Tales from the Crypt and things like that. So wanted to sort of really, you know, tap into that sort of retro horror 1930s, 1950s kind of comic book feel. And yeah, he certainly achieved that. And then with Fire at the Center of the Earth is Mine, because of the song being quite Sabbathy, he lent on the Black Sabbath thing, and the lyrics, the words are all done in the sort of Master of Reality style. And the first one he did, Not Rocket Science, we said it's got to have a science fiction theme, and we like the vintage science fiction, and that's where the artwork comes from on the album as well, because
Oh, cool.
we like the old Isaac Asimov like
Mhm.
paperbacks, the old Pulp Fiction novels that have got those really amazing covers. You know, if you look at Michael Moorcock books or Isaac Asimov or even the Lovecraft ones, they always had amazing covers, and that's what we wanted to recreate with the album artwork as well. So yeah, it's all ties in very nicely at the moment.
Yeah, that's so awesome. As you can tell, I'm a little bit of a reader. I had seen in another interview that you had mentioned Bradbury, which is one of my favorites. I really, really enjoy the Martian Chronicles. I think that one's probably my favorite of his.
Yeah.
Um, and then I did a paper on H.P. Lovecraft, and I think it was in college.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a weird
That's the thing,
thing to
because
think about now.
Lovecraft kind of not only did he sort of define Gothic horror, but he also invented his own cosmic horror with the
Yeah,
Cthulhu sort of
right. And that
boss.
story holds up. Like that's a creepy
It does. I
story.
mean, a lot of it does, and everybody that he kind of influenced, the likes, I don't know, I say influenced, but was kind of writing around the same time as the likes of Robert E. Howard and Algernon Blackwood and Arthur Machen and people like that. They, it's incredible to sort of see how a lot of that is still, relevant today. It's stuff that I guess no one will ever really know the truth of. And, I still believe that there are old gods sort of hidden beneath oceans and under the Arctic Circle and things like that. So, but that's maybe because I've read so much of it that I like to believe it. But yeah, there's this album didn't lean so much on Lovecraft as it did more the sort of George Orwell and Robert Bloch and people like that. I I definitely wanted to tap into that Orwellian sort of dystopia where we are now. In 1984, he made a lot of observations that we are living with now. The government are tracking our every move with our mobile phones, our IP addresses. There's cameras on every street corner, and Big Brother is watching us. So yeah, it was just it's interesting to put that into a musical realm. And I know I'm not the first person to do it. I mean, many metal bands and rock bands have touched on it in the past, but it was a first for us.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a really cool theme all throughout. I mean, I've said to a lot of people that it feels like, yeah, we're living in some like really messed up dystopian novel that isn't even believable. Like I feel like if I was
Yeah,
reading what was happening in the world
yeah, you
right
didn't
now
believe
and a
it.
lot I would be like, this is stupid. This is not even believable. And that
Yeah,
it totally feels like that. So I don't even know the last time I've read a dystopian novel because I'm like, nope, it's too close to home at this point.
yeah. They call them autobiographies now.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Do you still find time to read?
I do, yeah. I mean, I've just finished reading. Actually, talking of autobiographies, there's a comic hero of mine here in the UK called Adrian Edmondson, who was one of the creators of The Young Ones and Bottom and stuff like that. I just read his autobiography, which was really good. And I just read, hang on, who's it by? Just read this Sapiens by Yuval Noah.
Oh, I've heard that one's really good. And
It
there's a
is really
second one
good. It's
too,
like
right?
a brief history of humankind, which is cool. And I'm just getting stuck into this Arthur Machen Great God Pan as well. So yeah, I like to try and find time to read because I think it's a great way to sort of get away from taking my mind off of work and everything
Yeah.
else.
I was gonna say, but I thought you were gonna say off the world because I was like, Sapiens is a nonfiction, isn't it? Isn't it
Yeah.
like yeah, yeah, it's not
Yeah, I
really an
mean,
escape.
it's pretty much everything we know about the human species, but it's looked at in quite an interesting in way. So it's definitely worth reading. And I've heard the follow up, is it 21? Um, I can't remember the title of it, but he's done another one as well, which is supposed
Yeah,
to
it's
well.
got a black cover. It's
Yeah.
like I want to say it's like Homo Deuce or something like that.
Oh yeah, he's done that one as well, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm reading stuff like that, and for this album, I was reading stuff by like Dr. Jordan Peterson's books, and I was reading Eckhart Tolle, and
Mm.
getting more into philosophy. My son bought me some Nietzsche stuff that
Oh, nice.
I've never actually read before, which kind of found very interesting and insightful as well. So yeah, it was a whole mishmash of stuff going into
Love
this
it.
album. Yeah,
It's a lot of stuff that I enjoy too. Just a quick note. There's a book called Sophie's World that's really good with philosophy. It's kind of like a mystery where there's this little girl who's getting these packets in the mail from this like mysterious author who's teaching her philosophy, and he asks her like these thought-provoking questions, and then he
right.
starts teaching her about all the different philosophers, and it's done so well that it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot to learn because there's so
I'll
much to
make a
it.
note of that.
It's really good. It's really
Sophie's
good.
World. But that's a good thing that science fiction now is kind of it's the one genre where I feel that there's still original ideas,
Hmm.
horror movies and things like that. Everything's been done and they're remaking things. And I know, we're waiting on a new Alien movie this year, but in recent years, there's been some really good science fiction stuff. And, I really enjoyed things on Netflix, like the Three Body Problem, and there was the Dark Matter on Apple TV, which is really
Mm,
good.
I read that book. I haven't seen the show yet.
Yeah, I've been meaning to sort of look into the book because
Okay.
I've enjoyed the TV show. But yeah, there's still a lot of interesting ideas, and I guess that's because you can go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
And and like we were saying earlier, the world we live in now kind of it does encourage having these dystopian sci-fi sort of ideas. So yeah, here we are.
They have to make them even more outlandish now because they steered too close to
Yeah.
what is happening. So when you go to write lyrics, do you find it because you enjoy reading a lot? Do you find it easier to, well, especially with this one, it seems like it was more of maybe a cathartic thing in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I guess there was a lot of catharsis in it, because of my journey personally from getting sober and everything. And in the past, I'd always left writing lyrics till the very last minute, often scribbling lines down in the studio as we were about to hit record. But this time I was really prepared, and what I did was I made a point of making sure the guys, write the music and getting an idea of what the music sounded like to try and dictate what the lyrical theme would be and how the vocals would be delivered. So that played a big part in it. And that's why I really like the song False Hope Diet, because it kind of weaves in and out of different ideas. And I'd had this idea to do something in a kind of Hawkwind Monster Magnet style that kind of
Hmm.
tapped into the whole conspiracy theories and particularly, what we've seen in recent years surrounding the COVID pandemic, and just basically how the media and the government are just lying to us on a daily basis. That's basically what the song is. They're feeding us a diet of false hope. It's kind of like they're pushing our buttons to see how much we'll take before we sort of revolt. And yeah, it's just interesting because whether you live in Europe or the US or wherever you are, it's the same. You've got these media outlets whose whole kind of line is dictated by whichever political party is support is. It used to be the other way around. The media outlet would support the government. Now I think it's the government that's supporting the media outlets and pumping money into them, and it's just a really crazy backwards world. And I've never been really sort of politically inclined, but we all have to sort of pay attention to some degree because it affects our lives. And
course.
the COVID pandemic. Now, looking back on it, I don't deny that there was a pandemic because a lot of people lost their lives, and that's a sad fact of what happened. But the way we responded to being told that we have to stay in our homes and queue up in the supermarkets and wear masks everywhere. I mean, if we did it again now, I'd say, fuck off, I ain't doing that. It's like, we got a life to live. And I do genuinely believe that it was a controlling experiment to a certain degree. I think they used it as an excuse to be able to sort of see how far they could get away with, keeping us under their control and seeing how subservient we were. And it was a ridiculous time when you look back at it now, and the impact that it had on working class and independent businesses. And I mean, myself, I worked at a booking agency called United Talent Agency, which is one of the biggest talent booking agencies in the world, along with CAA and uh, William Morris and those. And I got laid off from my job because obviously there'd been no shows. But that was a blessing in disguise because it gave me the opportunity to set my own business up. But unless you were in sort of one of the big corporations, and that's what I tap on in Full Soap Diet as well, is that there's the governments were going to their friends at the pharmaceutical companies to produce these vaccines. We didn't know what the hell we're being vaccinated with, and I certainly wouldn't have it now without knowing exactly what it is they're putting in me. So yeah, it was just a crazy time, and like I say, I don't deny that there was something out there killing people because sadly a lot of people did lose their lives. But the way we responded to it was insane.
I saw this thing the other day that made me laugh. And maybe you've seen it too, but it said something like, "I'm sure aliens fly past us and lock their doors."
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me, the whole idea that there is no other life form in the
Oh,
whole universe is ridiculous.
yeah, I
And
agree.
yeah, and there's all conspiracy theories about the moon landings and things like that. And I always used to pass conspiracy theories off as a load of old nonsense and clutching at straws sort of thing. But the more I've kind of read into it, and um, on the moon landings one, particularly listening to Bart Sibrel and his sort of ideas on it, you start to wonder.
Hmm.
Uh,
I
yeah,
will.
there's
I will listen to
and I
it.
like that. I
Yeah.
like having debate about that sort of thing and
Yeah.
seeing what people's take are on them because what is life without having opinions?
Right. Well, and having open-mindedness for all
Yeah, and
possibilities.
that's it. The open-mindedness is something I always struggled with. I was pretty much a sort of closed book as a kid. I was focused on music, football, and drinking, and that was it. And people used to suggest things like spirituality and meditation, and I would just sort of laugh it off and go,
So
as a craft.
important building blocks of life too.
Yeah, my wife introduced me to meditation, and I find it
Mm.
really helpful and cathartic as well. And yeah, the whole spirituality sort of sits between science and fiction. That's where the album title came from. We wanted to touch on three fundamental things that define the human condition and affect everybody's lives, regardless of where you're from or
Yeah.
who you are. There's science, and that to me is fact. It's there in black and white. Experiments have proven things since we discovered fire. Um, the fiction part for me personally, is religion. And that's been the biggest cause of problems on this planet since it first reared its ugly head. My God's better than your God, and if you don't believe me, then I'll kill you. And
Right.
we're still seeing genocide and holy wars to this day going off, and innocent people being killed in Palestine and
Mm.
Gaza. It's ridiculous to think that it's all over a sort of make believe sort of guy in the sky. And in somewhere between there, you've got spirituality, which lends a little bit from science and religion. You know, and don't get me wrong, I'm not completely anti-religion if it's used in the right way and people can find some morals and discipline and it gets them through bad times, then it's serving a decent purpose. It's just not something I rely on. And I
Right.
found it funny during COVID that, you know, people from the Catholic Church who had always put their faith in God were suddenly putting their faith in the scientists and asking them to develop these vaccines to save them from COVID. So where's your God now?
Yeah, right.
So, so yeah, yeah, it's a great album title, I think. Science, I believe in science, not fiction.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And you do tackle, like you said, a lot of these subjects within the album.
Yeah.
Tell me about End of Transmission. I really dig the song. I don't know if I've actually listened to the lyrics because I like the musical aspects of it so much that
Yeah.
every time I go to listen to the lyrics, I just get lost in the music.
Well, that song was written obviously to close the album, and it's kind of a sort of, could this be the last thing we ever record? Now, I certainly hope not, because we're having the time of our lives with this record. But we thought, you know, we're not getting any younger. And first album, to Frequencies from Planet 10, we were like saying, this is our first signal to the world. This is who we are. And then, you know, at the close of this album, it's like End of Transmission. And the lyrically, it's looking back over our 30-year career, really. It starts with looking back, what a wild ride it's been. And it's just talking about how in that time we've kind of lost our minds, we've lost touch with everything that's going on. The planet has declined, and it's just a insane world we live in now. So yeah, it was a fitting way to close the album.
I like that. So in the promo, there still is one more, the Eye of the Minotaur. Is that not going to be on the album then?
That's it's a bonus track in that
It's a cool
we
song.
recorded 10 songs and realized that, you know, the record label wanted a bonus track, and we weren't quite happy with where Eye of the Minotaur sat in the whole grand scheme of things. So we said we'll use that as the bonus, and it appears on the gatefold vinyl, it appears on the digipack version of the CD, and it's a great song. You
It's
know,
a really cool song.
it's kind of like it's a personal journey into my debauchery hell, and you
Mhm.
know, those those nights that turn into days when you open the curtains and realize that it's broad daylight and you've been up all night doing things you shouldn't have done, and feel like
Nothing
shit.
good happens past 2 a.m.
Yeah. So that was the story behind that song. But yeah, I mean, we really liked the song. We didn't want it to just be thrown away, so I'm glad it's sort of it's made it to the album in some form.
Yeah, it's a cool song. Well, I'm glad that you were able to get some catharsis through the album because the so Eye of the Minotaur had like kind of like a circus beginning. That's what I hear is like kind of a circus.
Yeah,
Is that what?
absolutely. I wanted to do this kind of you know, crazed ringleader at a circus
Yeah.
sort of introduction, because that's what, you know, when you get into alcohol and drugs, it's kind of like that's what it is. It's a crazy sort of carnival that you don't really want to sort of go down that path too much. So yes, I welcome to the, what is it? Welcome to the, I can't even remember my own lyrics now because I haven't listened to it since we recorded it. So, but yeah, that's what we was trying to achieve with that kind of weird circus effect.
Yeah, I like it. It was fun. Obviously not a super fun topic, but since you're on the other end of it, hopefully something that you've gained a lot of healing through, especially being able to write
Absolutely.
about it.
I mean, I feel great. Like I say, the drinking had got so bad that it was affecting my health. I was having liver problems. I was getting
Mm,
jaundice with my eyes. I
oh,
ballooned in weight to something like 130 kilos, and I was just not a very nice person to be around because of it. And it was having a detrimental effect on my relationship with my wife and the band and my son and just everyone around me. My business was suffering because of it. So one day I just decided to make that change, and I've tried and failed in the past,
mhm.
but my heart never really been in it up until, when I decided a couple of years ago. And I didn't have to go to any therapy or anything. I just got it into my head that I want to be a better person. I want to I want to stick around because, I love my wife, I love my family, I love doing what I do, and I don't want to throw that all away. And my only regret is that I didn't do it sooner because since getting sober, there's just so much more to life. There's so many more hours in the day.
Yeah.
Where I had that obsession with kind of self-destruction, I've now got an obsession with going to the gym and eating healthy, and I've lost over 25 kilos, and now going the other way and want to get into bodybuilding and stuff like
Oh,
that.
awesome. Oh, good for
It's
you.
it's a really positive journey, and you know sometimes that can be difficult to navigate, especially in the music business where you kind of encouraged to drink and it's
Hmm.
around you all the time. But I'm very set in my ways. I'm very determined to stick with this, and I can see the benefits of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, and not only is it good for my kind of physical health, but it's good for my mental health, and
Yes.
and I think you can hear that in my lyrics, you can hear that in my performance on the record, and I definitely feel it in my performance on stage. I'm coming off
Hmm.
stage now with so much more energy, so much more
Hmm.
enjoyment. And I used to always sort of think I had to have a drink to go on stage and do what I do because, it's kind of that thing in it, going a bit of Dutch courage. But I replaced that with this natural adrenaline that I never knew existed. And it's a far better buzz than any drug I've ever taken. So, long may that continue.
Good for you. That's such a tough thing to do. I mean, we lost a friend
That's
and
that's it. There's this stigma in heavy metal that you're supposed to be a wild man of rock, like Ozzy or Lemmy or something, and people are, oh, you're not metal enough, you're not drinking. I'll be like, I've got nothing to prove to you.
yeah.
I've spilt more than you've drunk, so you don't.
And it's not really that so much that way anymore. There's a lot of younger
No,
bands
I mean,
that
if anything, I always sort of say that the whole kind of thing of rock and roll was rebellion. That's what it's about. And what's more rebellious than being in a heavy metal band and being sober?
yeah, seriously anymore. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I hope you get told a lot how proud people are of you because I know that's
I
a really tough
I
thing
do. It's
to
it's great.
come.
From a selfish point of view, the first person that I did it for was myself because I owed it to
You have
myself.
to.
But my wife's been amazing. My son's been great. My son's sober now as well, and there's no downside to looking after yourself and eating well and engaging in things. First tour we did when I got sober was we was in Germany for a week on a nightliner tour bus. And the rest of the guys, they still have a drink, and I'm not going to sort of dictate to them that they shouldn't because they're grown ups. They can make their own decisions. I'm not one of these people that's going to sort of put it on them to, oh, you've got to stop drinking or anything. So they were still up partying and going to bed around 5 or 6 in the morning.
Oh, jeez.
Hear them creeping up the stairs, and I was getting up. I'd have a protein shake and go out, and I was walking around the streets of Berlin and visiting Brandenburg
Oh,
Gate, all these like amazing historic sites that in the
oh,
past, I've been to Berlin numerous times, but in the past I'd either be sat in a dressing room with a beer in my hand or on the bus sleeping off a hangover, and now I'm getting out and seeing the world and enjoying different foods and cultures and
mm,
languages, and it's amazing. That's what we're here to do.
yes,
We got to embrace life and live every day like it's our last. So,
I love it. I love your philosophy on that. Last question. You said that you're really into horror. What are some of your favorite horror movies?
well, they've changed as I've got older because obviously I got into horror at a very early age. My mum was a big fan of horror movies, and as a kid, I remember sitting with her and watching stuff like Salem's Lot and
Mm-hmm.
American Werewolf in London
Mm-hmm.
and The Shining, and then as you become a teenager, you want to be cool. And I was a teenager when Video Nasties first came out, so it was like Evil Dead and I Spit on Your Grave and stuff like that. And then you realise that a lot of those schlocky sort of cheap Video Nasties, they weren't actually great movies. Cannibal Holocaust, Cannibal Ferox is like they served a purpose at the time. So as I've got older, I've learned to sort of appreciate the sort of subtlety of horror, and that's I'd have to say now that The Shining is still my ultimate go-to movie because there's so much going on in that film, and Kubrick was just an absolute genius by that point. And what he did, I know him and Stephen King didn't see eye to eye on his
The
adaptations.
book's very different.
Yeah, but I love that movie. I
Oh,
think it's a really interesting look again at the human condition and how that sort of isolation can drive people insane, and there's just so many different facets to it in The Shining. There's not only is there, Jack Torrance's kind of descent into madness because of the isolation, but also, the effect of the Shining on Danny and,
mhm,
the relationship with his wife. It's got a bit of everything. So it covers all.
mhm.
And, I still love watching the original Nightmare on Elm Street box
Yeah.
sets and things like that. But yeah, my taste in horror diversified. I appreciate a lot of the sort of Dario Argento stuff because of the way it's shot and the lighting he uses and the mood he creates and things like that. There's what else should I put in there? There's a lot of good, really, really good British horror. Obviously, I grew up watching Hammer horror on the TV, and I've always been a big fan of Christopher Lee and Vincent Price, and I like all the classic Dracula and Frankenstein as well. So yeah, it's a broad range of horror, but yeah, I'd say if I had to pick one, The Shining would be my ultimate sort of go-to, and the Shining and The Exorcist are the two sort of out films I could watch over and over again.
Flanagan's redoing the X, or I don't know if he's redoing the original, if he's like doing a reboot or if he's just making his own like Exorcist movie. But at this point, I
Yeah,
trust him with everything because I think he's brilliant, and so I'll be curious to see what he does with the Exorcist.
yeah. I mean, I always used to sort of say those classic movies shouldn't be remade. Suspiria got remade a few years ago, and I always said
Oh,
that
that's okay.
that should not be touched because that movie is perfect. But you know, there's been some sort of I watched the what is it, The Exorcist, the beginning recently that's got Linda Blair in it, and
Oh,
it's it's not great, but it's cool to see what they're doing with these movies now. And there's an Omen one now, the first Omen,
um,
but you can't beat the originals.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Usually not. Hopefully, I'm sure he'll do his own spin because he's just so great. Did you see the second part of The Shining? Did you see Doctor Sleep
I
with
did,
Daniel?
yeah, with Ewan
Yeah,
McGregor, but yeah, I
yeah.
thought it was right. It was kind of weird, but it was
He
interesting.
took a very different approach. I mean, because I read the book. It's one of my favorite Stephen King books, and
Yeah,
they did it almost perfectly with mixing in Kubrick's The Shining and The Shining the book and
yeah,
Doctor Sleep, like somehow. And I think Flanagan actually did that one, and so yeah, it he did a great job.
yeah, yeah. It wasn't a bad movie at all. It was, and there's that film, the documentary called Room 237 that was made
I
about.
haven't seen that yet.
That's really worth watching because
Okay.
that deals with some of the theories about Kubrick Shining that don't make sense. Like the room shouldn't have a window there if you look at the layout of the Overlook Hotel and things like
Oh.
that. It's really fascinating to delve into.
Ooh, I'm gonna look into it. Thank you. Awesome. Well, I've taken a lot of your time, Ben. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you
No problem at all.
taking the
It's been a
time.
pleasure.
It's been fun chatting.
Okay, well, yeah, we'll be in the States next year for Maryland Death Fest, and
Maryland.
look forward to coming back.
Yeah, it's a ways for me, but I've always wanted to go to that festival, so I might have to make a journey this time.
It'll be worth it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Awesome. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Bye.
Bye bye.